The 15th of July, and the center of Moscow has been blown up. In the center! In the center!
Basically, a drone explosion just went off. Everyone slept through it. We don't even know yet which tower got hit.
Donald Trump's missiles are striking Moscow City. Moscow has got blown up again.
Heart of the capital complex, Moscow City.
Donald Trump is sending Kamodavkas and JASSM to strike Moscow. I caught this on camera. The third phase of Operation Web has begun. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Are you filming? Yes, unbelievable. Whoa! Moscow airports are closed. Sabotage and gunfire near the Kremlin. Muscovites are in a panic. Evacuation has begun. What's happening? There are families and children there after work. The SBU is preparing new acts of sabotage on Russian territory. Moscow, St. Petersburg, get ready to evacuate. We'll discuss all this with Ruslan Kutaev right now.
So, there was a missile strike.
Breaking news, friends, the 15th of July and a new phase of the war. In the past 48 hours, Ukraine delivered devastating strikes. Pipelines in Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug, explosions 3,000 kilometers from Moscow, and strikes on the Pacific and Black Sea fleets. Russia is losing, depots are being destroyed, airfields in Pskov and Borisogledsk, oil refineries are burning. But most importantly, thousands of drones are flying toward Moscow and St. Petersburg, and Donald Trump has decided to provide Ukraine with JASSM missiles, American missiles, that will strike Moscow and St. Petersburg with a range of 1,000 kilometers. And that's incredibly powerful. Moreover, he made a statement that within 50 days, he is ready to impose hellish sanctions against Russia. Let's discuss all this with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutaev. Ruslan Mukamedovich, welcome.
Dasha, hello to you. Greet our esteemed viewers.
Ruslan Mukamedovich, a new phase of war, 1,000 drones flying toward Moscow and St. Petersburg, American JASSM missiles ready for deployment. What do you think?
I want to remind you of Zaluzhny's remarkable article from back in the day when he said, I warn both America and European countries, in modern life, in modern warfare, it is not people who win, but technology that wins. And Ukraine did just that, because at the time, then Commander Zaluzhny laid that groundwork. The Ukrainian authorities both understood and listened, and I think without a doubt, so did Europe. And these very drone technologies, Ukraine has made significant and notable progress in them. I always say this with pleasure. The engineering ingenuity of Ukrainian scientists is so great that now they easily fly beyond the Ural Mountains, they strike, they inflict damage, and they do this on a massive scale. That's right, as you said, they can reach St. Petersburg, Moscow, and any military targets. Unlike the Russians, Ukrainians strike specifically at strategic targets, military targets, or at worst, targets of a semi-military nature. And in this regard, Ukraine has now made significant progress. Putin, in his behavior, such brazen behavior, not only ignores Trump, but is actually quite mocking towards him. Especially Putin's propagandists, who have started acting this way. Finally, it got through to Trump. At last, someone in his inner circle managed to tell him, to show him that in Moscow they're mocking him. And he started to make some moves. God willing, he keeps it up. And now, America, first of all, what they had stopped, they've resumed, and now they're getting ready. You're right, long-range missiles will be able to reach, and it won't just be drones anymore, missiles will be able to reach both Moscow and St. Petersburg, as well as targets that until now have been out of Ukraine's reach. That's good news. That's very good news because with this, Ukraine is making fresh new emphasis that the war will have its turning point. And we have another piece of news as well. Trump himself said Europe will be financing, Europe will be paying, and America will be selling weapons to Ukraine, for Ukraine. And this news, which is gradually reaching us, is also reaching Russia. They're already starting to throw a fit over there. And, well, let them do that. While Ukraine will win, Ukraine will definitely win. And Merz is a real champ. I just can't get enough of him. Every day he makes such pleasant statements. Defense Minister Merz says such nice things, and all of this makes us happy. Why? Because Ukraine will win, because we will overcome the enemy, because we are winning, and it's already becoming so obvious. For me, it was always obvious that never under any circumstances would Russia defeat Ukraine. These are such good news, Dasha, and we're happy and we understand that everything is turning out much better than they thought in Russia.
Ruslan Kutaev, what do 1,000-kilometer range JASSM missiles mean, first and foremost, for Putin? And how will Russian war correspondents and propagandists react to this?
You know, if you think in Russian terms, they'll say they'll shoot there, strike the Kremlin, the State Duma. No. At most, only if Ukraine is forced to, will they do that, they'll target military factories. I want to remind our viewers, the Moscow region, both near and far, Tula, Vladimir, regional of these are packed with military enterprises producing weapons, ammunition, and military technologies. And that's why, first and foremost, it's a signal if a drone strikes. But several drones, dozens of drones, can stop a facility, can destroy a facility, and a missile is a nightmare for Russia and for Russians, because with just one or two strikes, these facilities will cease to exist. So this is very good news. This is good news, along with the fact that I want to remind you, Ukrainians have not stopped. They are improving the Neptune, which has the same 1,000-kilometer strike range. If anyone thinks that this production has been abandoned, they are mistaken. In fact, I actually think that soon Ukraine won't need either American or European missiles because their scientists are improving and working on them. And if the Ukrainian military-industrial complex starts producing them on a serial industrial scale, then Ukraine, I can say this confidently, it won't take much time, 3 years, 5 years, which unfortunately is a lot in wartime conditions. But Ukraine will already have brought its own military industrial equipment and development complex to such a level that they will confidently be able to sell to other countries as well. Good news, Dasha. Good news and good expectations.
Samfarich, what does Trump's statement mean that in 50 days he might impose sanctions against Russia? Will these be hellish 500% tariffs, or will they be more lenient for the Kremlin and those countries that buy energy resources from the Russian Federation, the aggressor country?
I'll be honest with you, we've already gotten used to Trump's behavior. This is blackmail against Putin. He's blackmailing Putin. They talked about something, they made some kind of deal. As Trump says, they had some sort of arrangement. But apparently, Trump didn't fulfill his part of that deal. We suspect that his part was the capitulation of Ukraine. Neither Putin nor Trump, even together, will ever be able to achieve this. And that's why now we can guess what kind of signals Putin and Trump are sending to each other. And these 50 days, Trump gave to Putin, either you meet me halfway and we start implementing our deal, their deal, or I will continue to arm and essentially finance Ukraine. It's equivalent. And now Trump will wait to see what initiatives come from Putin. If something that Trump expects from Putin happens, Trump could, without batting an eye, change his position with his statement. I think Ukraine understands and realizes this very well. In Europe, they also understand and realize this. That's why European countries have set their sails to full strength without looking back at America. They have started to put their industrial enterprises into operation, so to speak. I've said this before. Germany's automotive sector, for example, Volkswagen has announced that they are stopping civilian production and switching to the military industrial development of Germany. So we will listen to Trump. We like the way he speaks. But to trust Trump completely and rely solely on him would be to deceive ourselves. So we move forward. As long as Trump is providing all this great, that's good. Even if he stops providing it, when he starts to pull back, I hope Europe will step up and Ukraine will step up as well. I want, in general, and it's important for viewers to hear this. Lately, dear viewers, Ukraine doesn't just want shells and ammunition, they want to develop their industry, their military industry. They want to build up their own military industrial complex. And that is a state-level approach. And they will produce their own shells, their own missiles, their own drones, and their own aircraft. And here, I'm not overreaching. It won't be long before Ukraine has and produces its own aircraft. And they already have the foundation for it. We know what Ukraine is, Mykolaiv, shipbuilding. And what kind of ships will come out of the shipyards of Mykolaiv and Odessa. And that's what we're waiting for. The Caucasus is waiting for such an industrial, strong Ukraine because we are allies, because we are brotherly peoples, and we will stand together against our enemies. So, Dasha, these are not empty expectations of some lazy Ivan lying on the stove. These are real actions that are taking place. We're pushing for this to move faster, to go better, and we are happy when this is being done, and all of this is really happening.
Dear audience, please like this video. Write a few kind words in support of Ukraine in the comments. We are working for an audience all over the world. This is very important. Ruslan Kutaev, a very important point is that for now, Merz has not given us the Taurus missiles. Today, the story with the German Minister of Defense is that he said there will be no Taurus missiles. But as far as we understand, at the end of this month, so very soon a batch of missiles, Ukrainian long-range missiles, will arrive. Germany financed the production of these missiles. So essentially, Germany funded a batch of Ukrainian long-range missiles. What do you have to say about this?
Let's say, fantasize a little bit here. What if the Germans are supplying Taurus missiles, but officially they are providing funding so that the Taurus's internal components are rebranded with a Ukrainian name like Bodan or something else? So I wouldn't rule anything out here. And that's why we see Germany's attitude, the stance of Merz, Pistorius. In general, there's a lot of awareness in Europe right now. I see that when I meet with German politicians compared to 2 years ago, they are completely different people now. They've suddenly started to realize and understand that the front line isn't just Ukraine's front line in Ukraine, but it's actually the front line of Europe, of Germany and France in Ukraine. And now, in terms of their understanding, they're even ahead of France, and I dare say even ahead of Britain. Britain, we remember, back in 2022, in 2021, even before Russia's invasion, the enormous efforts made by both Johnson and Britain when they essentially declared that even if the whole world turned away, Britain, Poland, and Ukraine, united in alliance, would do everything possible to resist Russia's incursion into Ukraine. And that's why even such an ally as Britain, in my opinion, is now outshining Germany with its initiatives and its understanding that victory is necessary. By the way, Merz is already speaking openly about this. Russia must be defeated, and Ukraine will do it. So overall, we expect that every day we will be receiving good news. Good news from the GDP, or more precisely, from Germany's military-industrial complex.
Ruslan Kutaev, regarding the current situation, Putin continues his missile and drone terror despite the fact that this week Kit Kellogg is in Kyiv on the 15th of July. He is in Kyiv. He arrived on the 14th of July, and he will be staying for a whole week. But the drones are flying, ballistic missiles, MiGs are taking off. In other words, Putin is constantly attacking Ukraine, and he's attacking it right now at the very moment when a high-ranking U.S. representative, Kit Kellogg, has arrived there. And this is also a signal to Trump that I don't care that your man is in Kyiv. I will keep shelling Ukraine. I will keep attacking it, and I will take whatever I want.
Moreover, they once convinced Putin that for Russia, remember when Margarita Simonian said, we just have to blink or wink and Kyiv will be ours. And so Putin and his emissaries made the American side believe that there was nothing to even think about or discuss. Here, Russia would defeat Ukraine. And so in order to back up these claims and initiatives they've put forward, that's why things like this happen, so that someone like Kellogg can say, yes, Russia carried out both missile and drone attacks, and all of this continued. By doing this, Putin thinks he's showing off, so that reports will reach Trump that Russia is now carrying out very serious attacks and conducting these military operations against both Kyiv and all of Ukraine. I think there's also a bit of a secret to Putin's behavior here. None of it will help. Neither Kellogg's presence during the attacks, no persuasion, no Trump's indifference. Trump himself is now, as we know, in trouble for another reason because of Epstein, but right now, MAGA, which is the core of Trump's support, has turned against him. Trump is now losing ground very seriously. And if he now loses his connection with Ukraine, 70% of Republicans, American voters, support funding and backing Ukraine, and Trump is not free to act right now. And maybe if he were free, he would act completely differently because he is not particularly known for his love of Ukraine or Ukrainians. And that's why we need to understand that it is the voters, the mood of Americans, including a large part of, let's say, the Reagan wing of the Republicans who support Ukraine. And that's why we have the situation we have now. All of this combined puts pressure on Trump. It all weighs on him. And he is being given signals that Trump should act actively in support of Ukraine. And that's why none of Putin's initiatives, none of his maneuvers, no matter how he strikes at peaceful Ukrainians, defenseless children, women, by the way, their favorite pastime is killing defenseless people. We know from the two wars in Chechnya that they kill the most defenseless. They fire at markets, they fire at hospitals, at mosques, at maternity wards. They think that by doing this, they will cause panic back then among Chechens, now among Ukrainians, and that the Ukrainian population will rise up, stage some kind of Maidan, and demand that Zelensky stop the war. There's one thing they don't understand. On the contrary, it is precisely because of their actions that contempt and hatred toward Putin and the Russians are growing. Now Ukrainians will fight to the last person without hesitation, but they will never accept this invasion by Putin and his ideology of Russian Nazism.
Dear audience, Ruslan Kutaev and I work for you every week, as always. We work for an audience all over the world, so your support is invaluable. Every like, every comment is priceless. In the comments, let us know what you think about our partnership and what you think about Trump being ready to provide Ukraine with long-range JASSM missiles so it can attack military targets in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And now I can't help but ask you, if Europe adopts a new 18th package of sanctions, lowers the price of oil to $45 per barrel, and if Trump within 50 days, which means definitely before September, opposes sanctions, or rather, if the Senate imposes secondary sanctions against Russia, could this shake the Kremlin regime, Ruslan Kamidovich? Or will none of this matter to Putin from an economic or military standpoint, because for him, waging war against Ukraine means political survival?
These are serious sanctions. If the Senate is ready. Before we talked about 80 people. Now there are 85 supporters. And let me remind you, there are only 100 people in the Senate. And that's why this is a very significant number. The Senate is ready to support Ukraine. The Senate is indeed imposing very aggressive sanctions. They are considered aggressive because they will target buyers of Russian oil, specifically the buyers. And who are the buyers? They are China and India. It won't be profitable for them because with these sanctions, it will be better for them to buy Iranian, Saudi, or any other oil since their losses will be significant. And this is a very serious blow, an extremely serious blow to Russia, to Russia's economy. Dasha, you and I have talked about this many times and cited the numbers. The economy already hit rock bottom in Russia. Right now, all it takes is to give this little house a shake and it will simply fall apart. And frankly speaking, everyone will be buried in the ruins of that house. That's why the situation in Russia is extremely difficult and complicated. And if these sanctions start to take effect, it will finish off Russia's economy and the front will collapse. And that's where some very interesting questions arise. I've been saying this since the very beginning of the war. 1.5 to 2 million killers from prisons from wherever. And even if they sent normal people to the front, they've turned them into killers. People who despise Putin, who despise the authorities, because after surviving the meat grinder assaults, all they have left is contempt and hatred for the Russian government. And everywhere you look, wherever we turn, there are always problems for Russia, for the Russian authorities, for Russian ideology. And that's truly good news for the entire progressive world and, importantly, for Ukraine.
Donald Trump made the statement that the US and NATO have reached an agreement to supply weapons to Ukraine at the expense of the Europeans. As I understand it, NATO will pay the United States of America for the supply of weapons. Another statement from the US president, the US will impose secondary sanctions against Russia and its partners if a peace settlement deal in Ukraine is not reached within 50 days. The United States will impose 100% import tariffs on Russia and its trading partners if Moscow and Washington do not reach an agreement on Ukraine. 100%. The coordination of American arms supplies to Ukraine will be handled by NATO and the US permanent representative to the alliance, Whitaker. Trump stated that he is not satisfied with Russia's position on Ukraine. Billions of dollars worth of military equipment will be quickly paid for by NATO and distributed on the battlefield in Ukraine. We received the figure of 100%. The United States will impose 100% import tariffs on Russia and its trading partners. This sounds very realistic and very strong, actually, because we understand perfectly well that 500 is a lot, and it wasn't very realistic. But 100% is also a lot, yet it's realistic. What do you think? What will China and India do at that point? I'm really curious to see.
Dasha, 500% really is just pure fantasy. 100% is enough. If you want to know, 50% is already a lot, but 100 is deadly. 100 is deadly. And that's why, now look at how Trump's rhetoric has softened. Before, he wouldn't even allow talk about NATO supplying weapons to Ukraine. He said that European countries could do it if they wanted to. He raised the issue to make sure it was clear that NATO wasn't supplying weapons because the US is a NATO member. Do you see now the United States itself is now saying that through NATO we will supply weapons? What a softening, a shift in America's attitude, and above all, Donald Trump's attitude toward Ukraine. This is really noticeable. And here you're absolutely right. If before 500% was just pure fantasy, now things are shifting into a more practical realm of understanding for people, for countries, for heads of state, and frankly, for politicians, political scientists, and experts. 100% is a good number. It's a strong number, and it already looks and sounds much more realistic.
Sanfonich, regarding Trump's statement, another 17 Patriot systems are being prepared for shipment. 17. A large number of these systems will be on the battlefield. We've spent about $350 billion on the Russia-Ukraine war. We wanted it to end. Ukraine will feel that it has become stronger. 17 Patriot systems. The introduction of secondary tariffs in the US, absent progress on Ukraine, will not require congressional approval. Essentially, we've gathered to discuss key statements made by Trump on Monday. 17 Patriot systems. What do you think?
That's very significant. In order to protect Ukraine, experts have said that at least another 7 to 9 Patriot systems are needed. If America were to provide coverage, at least not for the frontline areas, but for the deeper regions, say Odessa, Kyiv, and other regions, they would be fully protected. 17 Patriot systems means that all of Ukraine would be covered. This means that the already supplied F-16S will be able to operate very effectively, inflicting serious damage. Why is that? Because when the sky is protected and there is no threat of incoming attacks from the Russian side, even the Ukrainian Air Force, though it is small, will be able to operate and operate effectively. And here, all the significant advantages are becoming quite abundantly clear, forming a robust chain of newly established and important relations between America, that is specifically Trump and Ukraine. And this cannot help but make us happy. And we sincerely hope that these initiatives he has announced will not remain just proposals, but will actually be put into practice. At the same time, I want to address the viewers. This is important because I am often asked, what if Trump suspends his announced initiatives and doesn't follow through? Dear viewers, the political and military leadership of Ukraine is working so closely with European countries and their defense ministries that they are trying during this period to compensate for any potential losses from America. I think it won't be long before, frankly, America won't even be needed. Yes, today it is needed. Yes, until autumn, America is definitely needed. We know one thing for sure. Russia's summer offensive has completely failed. They wanted to blackmail Ukraine by approaching Sumy and Zaporizhzhia, shelling the cities and trying to force Ukraine to retreat or give up some territories, but nothing worked out for them. You should read and listen to Russian war correspondents. They are screaming, they're tearing their hair out in one place and everywhere because everything they planned has failed. And it will only get better from here. Autumn and I have always said, even a year ago, autumn, September, October of 2025, when Russia will have to fully admit that they can't do anything at that point. And this lull will continue, but this silence won't last long. Ukraine will go on the offensive. How will they organize it? In what way will it be structured? I won't presume to say I'm not a military expert, but I can confidently state Russia will be finally convinced. Even Russian war correspondents are already saying, that's it, we won't be able to do anything anymore. And Ukraine with new technologies, new supplies, longer range missiles, planes, aviation. Ukraine has enough control of the skies. If Ukraine's skies had been closed off with air defense systems, missile defense, and aircraft, Ukraine would have won long ago, and there would be peace on Ukrainian soil. We are waiting for this. And these are not empty expectations. This is a clear and consistently pursued course of action by the Ukrainian political and military leadership, which shows that they know where to go and they are leading Ukraine and Ukrainians in the right direction toward victory, toward Ukraine's victory over Russia.
Ruslan Kutaev, to wrap up, a few more quotes from Trump's major statements on Monday, the 14th of July. Trump had an epiphany. I hung up the phone, said it was a great conversation, and then missiles started flying at Kyiv. Conversations don't matter, Trump stated. Trump also said that Putin would not deceive him. And when the conversations end, actions begin. Then the reporter made a statement. If Putin continues to escalate, how far are you willing to go in response? Trump, in what? How far are you willing to go in response if Putin intensifies his missile and drone attacks on Ukraine? Trump. Don't ask me such questions. Ruslan Kutaev, what do you think?
He fully understands the situation. If Russia truly continues its aggressive actions, if it doesn't stop and persistently keeps bombing Ukraine, targeting civilians and essential social infrastructure, then Trump will inevitably have absolutely no other viable choice. The whole world, this can no longer be hidden. He will have to take more effective measures against Russia. And here is another question. And Russia cannot stop. As soon as the war stops, Putin's power, his rule, will effectively be called into question. Because those who have been lying low, those who for the past 25 years have been the foundation of his rule in the FSB, are now his enemies. And it is precisely the war, the Ministry of Defense, the units of the Ministry of Defense, and what they are doing in Ukraine that prevents the FSB from openly calling for and attempting to overthrow Putin. That's why Putin has big problems. As long as he has the strength, power, influence, and opportunity, he will continue to push forward in Ukraine. But I really hope that the set of measures that America might take in this case will simply leave him without the strength to continue. And then that will be the end for both Putin and his regime. And then they will start sorting things out among themselves. There are plenty of players, the FSB and Putin, those 1.5 to 2 million people they sent to kill on the front lines, these killers, having gained nothing in Ukraine, will now turn to killing within the government. Yes, they will kill Muslims, they will be directed, their rage will be aimed at the peoples of the Caucasus, but it's still unclear how this will end. We are preparing for this very seriously and counting on it. In the end, this evil that emanates throughout the world, spreading murder and violence, the Kremlin, Russia, will eventually collapse. We are doing everything we can to make that happen. And Ukraine is truly at the very forefront of this ongoing war and this significant struggle.
Dear audience, Ruslan Kutaev and I work for you every week. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Today we discussed Trump transferring JASSM missiles to Ukraine, which can strike military targets in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Changes in Trump's military rhetoric will support Ukraine and provide it with offensive weapons, defensive weapons, and 17 Patriot systems. NATO will purchase weapons for Ukraine from the United States of America, and there will also be 100% tariffs on Russia, meaning that countries buying energy resources from Russia will be subject to 100% tariffs. If Putin does not stop, the Senate may vote on this bill within the next 50 days. President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutaev. Ruslan Kutaev, thank you. And as usual, see you next week.
All the best. Take care. See you soon.